Katura and Rachel, do you guys want to check out your volume to make sure you're okay before we get started?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. My computer decided it wanted to choose now as the time to crash, so I'm currently trying to restart it, but we will go ahead and get started because it is 2:05. So I want to thank you all for coming out to Bring a Hacker to Work Day. So this is the day that we at Black Girls Hack try to provide exposure to different areas within cybersecurity. So today we are talking about social engineering. And we have the wonderful folks from Temple University here to discuss social engineering with us. So we have Anshul, who is a professor there at Temple, as well as Katora and Rachel, who are both PhD candidates and research assistants there. So if you guys want to, I guess, briefly tell a little bit about yourself, and then we can get started on your presentation.
So thank you so much, Tanisha, for that introduction. We are very excited to be here today. We're actually going to introduce ourselves a little bit more once we actually get started. But yeah, we're all from Temple University, which is located in Philadelphia, and we're with the Criminal Justice Department there. And we are also all, it's a three-person team that you see here. We're all members of the CARE Lab, which is Cybersecurity in Application Research and Education. So Rachel, do you want to get us started?
Yes. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Slideshow. Okay. So hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for our workshop on social engineering. So my name is Rachel Blyman, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Dr. Anshul Regge and Katura Williams. And like Anshul said, we make up the CARE Lab team at Temple, which stands for Cybersecurity in Application, Research, and Education. So the quick introductions. Again, I'm Rachel. I'm a first-year criminal justice PhD student and research assistant.
I'm Katora. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in the Department of Criminal Justice, and I am also a research assistant.
And I am Anshul Regge, and I'm an associate professor with the Department of Criminal Justice at Temple.
We also want to thank, before we begin, we want to thank NSF and Temple University for giving us the opportunity to conduct our research. And we want to thank Black Girls Hack for hosting us today. So thank you. So to start off, social engineering is defined as any act that influences a person to take an action that may or may not be in their best interests. For 2017, it was found that about 70% of organizations in the US experienced a social engineering attack, with cumulative costs totaling around $2.76 million. And the average time to resolve each incident was about 20 days. That financial loss and recuperation period can do a lot of damage to organizations. Then for 2019, it was found that from just business email compromise scams, phishing scams, and romance scams, there was more than $2.23 billion in financial loss. And security experts agree that the human factor is often exploited or leveraged in cyber attacks via social engineering, more so than any technical methods, which is why we should focus on this particular attack vector. So the first stage of a cyber attack is the reconnaissance stage. And it's been said that 50 to 75% of the legwork is to learn about the environment beforehand, whether that's through social engineering, calling people to understand what systems operate in their plant, or researching the vendors and system to get hands on a copy of the system. This stage is primarily social engineering, and it's where cyber adversaries put in a majority of their work during an attack, again, showing the importance and the relevance of social engineering. There are several different types of social engineering, and we'll go through a few of those here. So first, we have baiting, which refers to when a hacker leaves accessible bait, such as a malware-infected USB stick, for a target to pick up and connect to their own computer, therefore installing the malware. Phishing, you've probably heard of, refers to ways in which an attacker can trick a target into providing personal information, usually through email and often by posing as a legitimate or trustworthy entity. Then we have spear phishing, which is a form of phishing that occurs when an attacker chooses a target within a specific organization, then sends seemingly relevant or important emails with malicious links. Next, email hacking and contact spamming occurs when an email is hacked and the contacts are spammed with malicious emails coming from that account. Then we have vishing or voice phishing, which refers to phishing that occurs over the phone, where a cyber criminal posing as a trusted individual, such as a bank, calls a target requesting personal information. An attacker using quid pro quo typically offers targets something enticing, such as a prize or a discount in exchange for personal information. Then we have pretexting, which is a much more general term that refers to the practice of presenting oneself as someone else in order to obtain information. Then we have OSINT, which stands for Open Source Intelligence, and it involves the attacker gaining useful knowledge about their target from information that is free and public, such as from social media accounts. And lastly, shoulder surfing involves attackers spying or looking over their target's shoulder while they're on a device in order to steal their personal data. So keep in mind, this is not an exhaustive list. And we'll also be showing videos later on in this presentation of some good examples of pretexting and shoulder surfing. So first up is an example of shoulder surfing, so you can see it in action. So this was during Dr. Reggi's undergraduate cybercrime course, where students in her class had to shoulder surf each other. I was actually in this class at the time, and I did this project, although I'm not in this video. But for this project, our class was divided into several teams, and we had 2 weeks to target opposing teams to try to get a picture or video of them on their devices where we could clearly see what they were looking at. And the rules were that we could only target our classmates, and we could only target them on campus. We couldn't just follow them all the way home or anything like that. We also couldn't capture any sensitive material like grades or banking info. So here's an example of my classmate who found 2 people from rival teams in the library, and he was able to do it without them even noticing. So here we go.
You see,
He made that look really easy, but this project was actually quite hard. Okay. So during a social engineering attack, there are several principles of persuasion that attackers can use in order to manipulate their victims. The first one is authority, which preys on the fact that people tend to comply with the instructions of authority figures, such as bosses at work or government agencies. And even if those instructions go against their personal beliefs, people will still comply because they're coming from authority figures. Next is the principle of commitment, in which people believe in the things that they're committed to. Attackers can use that belief to manipulate them. Similarly, consistency is the principle that people's behaviors and actions are based on their beliefs. Reciprocity is the fact that people tend to return favors that are given to them, sometimes in even greater ways. And then we have likeness or commonality, which is the principle that people are more likely to comply with someone if they share some sort of similarity with them, such as being from the same city, having the same name, or being the same age. Then scarcity suggests that people seek opportunities or items that are less available to them. And attackers can manipulate this persuasion principle by pretending to offer something scarce to make it seem more valuable and desirable. Next is social proof, where people tend to comply with a request when they know that other people have already done the same. And the last principle is the natural inclination to help, in which people tend to want to help those in need. And attackers can exploit this by posing as someone who needs some form of assistance. So next up, we're going to watch another video and try to test how well you all can identify these principles in action. So be sure to remember these, as there's more interactive components in this presentation coming up also. Okay, so before we watch this, I'll give it a little bit of context. This was another project from Dr. Reggae's cybercrime class. And in this one, students were tasked with using some sort of a prop. And in this video, you'll see it's a rubber chicken to get unknowing random people around campus to agree to give away their likeness by having their face or voice posted online. So as you watch this video, try to think about what social engineering techniques and what persuasion principles you see being used.
Don't be a chicken. With college students in mind as our targets, we wanted to come up with a strategy that would engage them without being obvious about our intentions. Ever since we got a Chick-fil-A on campus, they've been noticeably popular. The lines for it are always super long, so we use the popularity of Chick-fil-A to our advantage. It makes more sense to have a chicken-related strategy in order to get people to take a picture with us and our rubber chicken. So our story was that we are prankster YouTubers who wanted people to do the chicken dance for our channel. However, we didn't want to be obvious about that, so we came up with 3 chicken challenges, and we'd reward the target with chicken nuggets from Chick-fil-A. So to prepare, we looked up some chicken facts for what was originally supposed to be a quiz, and we went to the Student Activity Center and bought Chick-fil-A nuggets for our reward.
This was during lunchtime outside of the Student Activity Center, so it was fairly opportunistic to find some hungry college students. I made one announcement stating that if you completed our chicken challenges, you could win some free Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets. One target came up immediately asking what he had to do for free food. I told him that all he had to do was pass the chicken challenges. I asked him if we could take a video for our YouTube channel, to which he said yes to promptly. The first chicken challenge was to answer a chicken question, which was, what is the male chicken called? That is a rooster. The second is to demonstrate what sound a chicken makes while doing the well-known chicken dance. The third was to take a picture with our rubber chicken. He completed all the challenges successfully, and we joined in the frame for our selfie. After our selfie, we told him about the class project, and he walked away happily with his free chicken.
As far as lessons we learned that we couldn't be around too many of the other groups with chickens. We all went about the same time during the dedicated class time, so it was a little conspicuous and noticeable that something could be going on. Another lesson that we learned was that if you incentivize an activity, it'll bring more eager targets, which seems obvious, but if you know your audience as well, like college students, they're going to be more willing to participate and won't likely do anything for food, especially if it's like around mealtime. And the third lesson that we learned was that people don't really care if they're on social media with strangers and how easily their information is obtained. Like, we didn't do a waiver or anything like that, so he unknowingly just gave his face for our YouTube channel without, knowing it could be abused or anything like that.
Okay, so what persuasion principles or social engineering techniques did you see? And I can pull up the persuasion principles slide again for reference. If you need help starting out, one social engineering technique that I saw being used was pretexting. Well, what did everyone else see?
Yep, we've got some stuff in the chat box.
Reciprocity, I saw that, that's a good one. Anybody else see anything else? Anybody else? Social proof. Okay, and we can also think past the persuasion principles and the social engineering tactics to more generally, what did you see that made them successful? It doesn't have to be stuff that we just talked about. Yep, the commonality. Everyone does love Chick-fil-A.
I think that's a nice segue into what you want to talk about, right, Rachel?
That's
what
true.
else? What
Yes.
else?
Okay, so past the persuasion principles and the techniques, there's also some other stuff that can improve chances of success in a social engineering attack. So one of them is props, and that can help to make a pretext more believable. And that can look like something like someone is holding a clipboard to seem more official. And along the same lines of that, clothing can make a pretext more believable as well, such as someone wearing a uniform of the person they're pretending to be. We have food and animals. These make targets more willing to engage in conversation or cooperate as they have reasons for wanting to be there, like getting to eat free Chick-fil-A, like we just saw, or something like playing with a dog is a good one. Another one that we saw here was the importance of the venue, and that can improve success as well. So if it's a busy place, there are more people to target. And some places, like in the video, are commonly used for legitimate organizations or maybe even random YouTubers to advertise, recruit, or just talk to people. So that aspect of the venue can help attackers to blend in and not really seem so suspicious. And the last one is timing. So that can be targeting people during lunchtime, where people are, in the mood for Chick-fil-A and they want to eat, or it can be towards the end of the workday when people are in a rush to leave. I'm just checking out the chat. Yep. Okay. And then there are also certain personality traits that make people easier to and more likely victims for a social engineering attack. And those personality traits include conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So conscientious people tend to follow the rules, making them more vulnerable to social engineering attacks that exploit rules and social norms. Extroverted people tend to desire more social contact and are more likely than introverts to unknowingly cooperate with someone during an SE attack. Then agreeable or trusting individuals are more likely to be victim to social engineering attacks that relies on the attacker establishing trust with the victim. And lastly, neurotic individuals tend to be more cautious in their social interactions, and therefore they actually will be less likely to fall victim to a social engineering attack. So now that we've had an overview about social engineering, and through all of this, I really want to emphasize again that the human factor is heavily targeted in cyber attacks. So we want to think about why should we care and where should we go from here? How do we train the future generation with this knowledge in mind? And on that note, Couture is going to speak more on that.
Hi, everyone. So in looking at the landscape of cybersecurity professionals, currently in the US, there is a shortage of over 300,000 cybersecurity professionals, and that shortage is expected to balloon to over 2 million by next year globally. So the hard sciences and the traditional STEM fields, such as computer science and engineering, are already heavily investing in trying to address this shortage. They're also putting in hands-on learning and experiential learning, and getting students to participate in ethical hacking and digital forensics. However, that solution is too small and too homogenous to really cover the landscape and the gap that's being exposed. What's really needed is an enlarged and more diverse group of professionals that fosters creative potential. And so our solution is to put forth a more well-rounded cybersecurity workforce. And the first way we can do that is to start to recognize that cybersecurity is not just a technical problem, but it's an inherently social problem. And once you start to view it as a social issue, you can embrace the social science students and the liberal arts students. After all, we are the students who do the human side of things, right? So we focus on behavior and motivation. So we can look at the cybersecurity or cyber attacks from a different perspective than the more hard science students. And by pulling those students in, you not only empower those social science students, but you change the mindset of what a cybersecurity professional looks like. And then you start to force them to embrace and contribute to the field of cybersecurity. Furthermore, the hard science students get exposed to the human factor, which makes them better designers and eventually better defenders against cyber attacks. So what does social engineering look like as a career choice? There are a couple of different routes you can take. First thing you can do is be a part of a pen testing team. And there are a few well-known social engineers, such as Snow, who can be found at Snow on Twitter, Tinker, who can be found at TinkerSec on Twitter, and Chris Hadnagy, who can be found at Human Hacker on Twitter. Each of these people have spoken in the past at our social engineering competition, and all of their keynote speeches are available on our website if you would like to learn a little bit more about them. Social engineers can also be involved in the policy development for IT departments across the corporate landscape, and teach folks about hiding your password or coming up with more creative passwords, not picking up random USB drives, or knowing how to identify folks who are coming in and identifying a pretext, essentially. And the third place where they can fit in is through awareness and training. And one thing that Dr. Rege has done in her class is to try and get the students involved in that part. So last semester, they had to put together PSAs for a Cybersecurity Awareness Week, and we have an example of one that they put together.
At this very moment, someone like this is trying to get your information. Whether it's a suspicious text via smishing, a phony website set up to get your email and private data, or a phishing call about your car's extended warranty.
You need my social? Oh yeah, fine, no problem.
Be sure to verify who you're giving your information to, and make sure it's secure to do so. Millions of people fall victim to cybercrime each year. Don't be one of them.
Thank you for that. So now we have another one of these interactive exercises where we take a look at one of the projects that Dr. Rege put together and try for you all to try and identify the social engineering technique and the strategy used. So just to cue you in on what's about to happen, this project was the Terms and Conditions project. Students were put into teams and they were told to come up with a pretext that sold a service to the students on campus. They had to get the students to sign a terms and conditions document agreeing to this service. Embedded in that document was some sort of silly statement. They varied. Some people said that you had to only wear a certain color sweater every day. Another statement said that you had to howl at the moon every night at midnight. The video you're going to see is about students having to agree to do the Millie Rock. They were able to come up with whatever strategy they wanted to use. They could use whatever props they wanted to use to be the most effective. And the video you're about to see is the team who actually was the best at this competition.
In this flag, our prep was to come up with our initial idea, which was a student spa center giving away a free massage coupon for signing up. We created and printed out surveys, brought out the dogs, and set up in front of Bell Tower and other places around campus. The actions were to get people to fill out a survey, meanwhile being able to pet the dogs. Some of the challenges that we have faced were people turning us down and not getting enough foot traffic. The only place that did not work well with us was the Bell Building, also known as Tech Center. People were too busy tending to their business instead of noticing us. Overall, majority of the Temple community that we had the pleasure of interacting with stated that they would read the terms and conditions if it were brief and concise. They also stated that the dogs was a good way to lure people in because a lot of people are dog lovers. We had some people who stated that we looked like friendly Temple students with a good cause because school and work can be a very stressful institution. In all, we enjoyed this project, and make sure you read your terms and conditions, which we all know no one will.
That is completely my fault, not reading.
For not reading it. Do you think from
future references, you will read terms and conditions from now on?
Definitely.
So basically, I just want you to sign that, we told you that it's part of class and that, it's for ethics and everything like that. So,
That's funny because I literally started reading them and I was like, no.
you gotta just really rocking weed hella big. I'm smoking weed, I'm counting cash. I'm really rocking on patch and nads. First arms up, then left and right. Then MJ, get out my sight. I bust the dance, just hit me up. That drink strong, I mix it up. We hopping out and we hitting this. On any block, rock militant.
And just a quick note, that was a professor that they actually got to sign the document, and she was gracious enough to go along with what was in the document, as you can see. So can you guys tell me what their strategies or persuasion techniques were?
Team, I see you in there, man. Let's hear it.
Natural inclination to help.
Yes. So we have, I see some people putting in the chat. So we got natural inclination to help, reciprocity, commonality, the dogs, extroverts being more susceptible, having the clipboards and filling out forms. Okay, so you guys did a pretty good job picking those out. Let's see if you can guess. Oh, I'm sorry, before we go. So I do want to point out that not everyone was successful. There were instances where the students or the targets did actually read the document and refuse to sign. As you can see in this first video here, this student chose not to sign because he doesn't trust corporations.
Read the entire terms and conditions out loud to us to see if we were up to any funny business. After having this guy sign this consent form, we had to interview him as he was the only one who read it. And he said he did so because we can't trust corporations since they're trying to steal our money.
And then this gentleman down at the bottom also read it and found the embedded statement. And I believe this was the statement about howling at the moon at midnight.
No, I'm not signing this.
So some people do read their terms and conditions, and not everyone fell for our little ploy here. So we do have another activity coming up. And this, just to cue you in on this activity, this was another one of those pretexting exercises to see if someone would give away their likeness. This group had a different prop. They had a stuffed unicorn and they took a different approach. So again, watch the video and then see if you can tell us what strategies they used to make themselves successful.
Script 3 is a personal favorite. We went in with the intention of having a staring contest with the unicorn. Little do we know, it would turn into one of the most rewarding experiences we had. We used the unicorn as bait to get our target to have a staring contest with Rob. Initially, the goal was to have a staring contest with the unicorn, but in all fairness to our contestant, we went with Rob.
A clock can get the. I can put on a timer. All right, put a timer on. Let's see how long we can go without blinking. All right, so get your eyes all ready. On 1. Do you inside the stopwatch now?
I blinked.
It's over. Yep. She blinked. All right. So you don't get to win the unicorn. But would you mind if I took a picture with you?
I'll be there, yeah. I've got a friend.
Okay, so can you tell me some of the strategies that you saw in the video? So we got likeness or commonality. Yep, they were college students. This one might have been a little harder. Natural inclination to help. Yep. And you might not, I don't know if they said it in the video, of social proof. So we got social proof. So it might, another thing that helped them was the venue. I don't know if they said it in the video, but they were in the student center. So it's always students kind of around for whatever reason. So they had a whole plethora of targets that they could have gone after. So I think that's it for that one. So why are these projects kind of useful? Like, what do they do? They essentially allow students to have interactive hands-on experience with what social engineering is. So if you don't understand it from like a verbal perspective, once you do it, you're like, oh, I see, this is what's been happening to us. And so it gives the opportunity for the students to learn, and it gives the educator the opportunity to learn how to put these kind of things in action and think outside the box to expose students to this. So one of the things that Dr. Rege has done that's been really useful is that she's packaged all of these projects together and made them available for professors all across the country. All you have to do is go to the website and request them. There are various iterations of each of these projects, some of them that we did not share today. You did see a video of the shoulder surfing, but there is a laptop distraction project where the students had to isolate a team of 2 IT professionals away from a laptop long enough to stick a USB drive into it and download a file. The group selfie with a prop, you saw that with the rubber chicken and the unicorn. There was the terms and conditions project that we talked about. And then there's the open source intelligence project, which has both a technical and physical OSINT component to it. All of these projects come with well-developed rubrics. They're ethically approved and do have evaluation surveys attached to them so that the students can talk about their experience with them, and you can ensure that they're learning from them. And here is just a screenshot of the website. So you can see the link is at the top, but we'll share it again later. And this is just the page where you can see, and you just click on which activity you want. These activities are endorsed by NICE. So they are NICE compliant, and you can have at them. All you have to do is sign up and request them. They've been downloaded over 200 times, so they are becoming pretty popular. And next up, we're going to have Dr. Rege talk about some of the ethics involved, not only with these activities, but also just social engineering as a whole.
Great, thanks, Katora. So hopefully you got some idea about the kinds of things that we're trying to do in the social sciences, right? Is how can we start understanding about the relevance of the human factor? And what you saw here was the end result, right? Through all these different videos that we just shared with you, which by the way, were created by the students, which I'm always impressed by, right? They come up with really, really good, fantastic products. But designing the projects wasn't that easy, right? So obviously what you didn't see here is the behind the scenes work that took about 6 to 8 months in terms of getting ethics approval. One of the questions that I always get asked when I'm teaching social engineering to students is, well, isn't this bad? Aren't you teaching people how to trick others? And the answer that I give is, look, social engineering is a tool, right? It's just like any other technical method, right? You have a lot of CTFs out there that teach students how to hack, right? Pen testing exercises are just that. So why is this any different? And I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, the best defense is a good offense. We want students to try their hand at this because if they're aware of this, you know, be it in there from a work perspective, they're going to be a better developer, a better defender, right? But it's also good for self-awareness, right? Practicing good cyber hygiene. And my, I will always argue in favor of this, that you absolutely need to have ethics in cybersecurity education. They actually go hand in hand, especially with, things that we're learning, right? Big data, data science, and all these kinds of things. What are the implications? You can't just build something. You have to understand the ethical implications, the potential consequences of these things. So I'd rather us educate students about this and educate the average user about this, so that they're aware of these things and can better protect themselves and their fellow employees or their families. And so it's so critical to have this aspect. And also monitoring the chat box. Yes, there are a lot of SE jewels being displayed. And thank you, Hakeem. Yes. So Rachel, can we move on to the next slide? Thank you. So one of the awesome pieces of news, and Tanisha and I have been talking about this for a while now, is I just got a new NSF grant, which is sort of my first endeavor into the education space. It's about educating others about social engineering and how can we make this more mainstream in the cybersecurity curriculum. So we're doing a couple of different things, right? This is catered towards both students and educators. So if you fall in any or both of these buckets, please, consider the next couple of slides that I'm going to be sharing with you. So part of this new grant is we are doing three things. The first one, which is what you're seeing here on the screen, are summer social engineering pen tests. These are happening virtually, obviously, at the moment, and they're happening on Fridays starting June 4th to August 13th. So I think that's about 10 Fridays. We're not holding the July 4th weekend. And what I'm sure you're all familiar with pen testing, so I'm not going to sort of delve into that, but we are the target, right? So as I mentioned, we're part of the CARE lab at Temple, and we're going to be the target. And the student teams are going to pose as pen testers that are going to do a social engineering pen test on us, right? So they can do OSINT, and they have to use this OSINT to then effectively phish and vish us. And then they have to write up formal reports about their findings and also provide recommendations for what we can do to protect ourselves against social engineering. So this competition is open to teams from high schools, undergrad and grad students at 2- and 4-year institutions. So if you fit, in this category, or if you know of anyone who would like to do this, please encourage them to go ahead and put a team together. Yes, the deadline is coming up, but we might actually be extending this a little bit. So again, if this is something that interests you, it's free to register, right? There's no registration fee. We're trying to keep costs really down to zero so everyone can participate. So that's one event. Then we have our second event, which is an educator's workshop. And this is also virtual. It is happening on Monday, June 7th. Again, no registration fees for this. This is open to full-time educators in high school or at 2- and 4-year institutions. If you're a high school educator, we're actually going to be able to compensate you for the 6-hour event. So it'll be an expanded version of what you got here today, but with a lot more interactive component. There's also a, how do you get through the ethics board, applications at your organization, and so on and so forth, right? So it's literally the idea is to take the pain out of designing and implementing something like this, and you would leave the workshop with a complete package of some possible course projects. Here's a sample protocol that you need to get submitted to the ethics board. So we're trying to make the lives of educators as easy as possible so that they can implement this in their classroom. So the resources that Katora mentioned a couple of slides ago, and I put the link in the chat box, these have all been not only approved by the ethics board at Temple, but we've also done 2 to 3 iterations in our classes first before we even share it with the public, because we want to make sure it works. If you are an educator, or again, if you know of any educators, please encourage them to apply. And the link to that is also provided here at the bottom of the screen, but we can put that in the chat box for you as well in a bit. And the last component that we have is our Collegiate SECTF. This is actually our second run of this event. Last year was our inaugural one. So this is where we partnered with the Layer 8 conference. So if you aren't familiar with who they are, you should check them out. It is a conference that is fully focused on social engineering and open source intelligence. So we partnered with them last year, and we brought in professional social engineers as judges. This is a combination of workshops and a competition. The workshops are open to anyone. The competition is only for undergraduate students at 2- and 4-year institutions. So last year, some of the flags were OSINT, phishing, and vishing, because again, it was virtual. This year it's virtual as well. And what we want to do is play for you a little bit of the winning team's Vish call. So here, let me set it up a little bit. So the teams were given a specific target that they had to do OSINT on, which they did. And then they provided that information to the judges. And based on the OSINT, they identified someone that they would like to target at that organization. The judge then takes on that persona, because remember, we're not targeting real institutions. We want to make sure everyone plays safely and ethically. So the judge then takes on this persona, and then the team tries to target the judge posing as, let's say, an employee for this organization. So what you're going to hear here is the winning team, which was a one-woman team from Norway, Bridget, vishing one of our judges, Tinker. So Rachel, do you want to go ahead and play that clip for them?
Bridget, I only have a couple more minutes to be able to help.
Oh, yeah, well, can you just try the link for me, please? Because if it's not working, then I can at least tell Evan that there's not just my issue, that's everyone else's issue as well, because otherwise he will just think I'm totally stupid.
Bridget, hold on one second. I just got an alert come up. Let me put you on hold. Hold on. Bridget, are you there?
Yeah, sorry.
Bridget, are you crying?
Yeah, sorry. It's just been a rough week.
Oh, no, I understand. What were we talking about? How can I help you again?
I'm trying to open the portal, but it doesn't work. And
okay.
Can you just please try and open it? Because if you cannot open it either, then Evan won't think I'm a complete fool, because I've been totally out of what he's probably going to fire me if I do one thing wrong.
Get there. What do you need me to open again?
I need you to open the new portal, the SSHF dash portal.no, the new portal for the STEM system.
Yes,
I just got a memo.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm gonna have to check with my supervisor. I'm not supposed to click on links just by itself. So hold on and let me check with my supervisor. What should I tell them to justify this?
I don't know. I just got the document and I just don't know.
Okay, Bridget. One second. I'll ask.
All right, so that was Bridget, and this is the quality that she brought into the competition. Obviously, she won that vishing component, but she also won the entire competition. So she's actually coming back this year to compete. So if you think you have some undergrad students at colleges and universities that would like to, take her up and beat her record, if you want to be that person, please, by all means, please go ahead and consider competing here. We haven't opened the applications yet. We're actually just announcing the judges. We're releasing a name every Friday. So thus far, we've released Patrick Laverty, who's actually the Layer 8 conference co-organizer, Layer 8 conference being the one that we've partnered with. and Tinker, who is that you just heard being Vished. So those are the 3 events that we have for the new grant. We're really, really trying to make the case that the social sciences is relevant in the area of cybersecurity, that the human factor is relevant, and we want to have events that are open to all fields, right? A lot of technical competitions are closed in the sense that only technical students can compete. Social engineering is something where anyone can try their hand at it. And that's the message that we want to send is cybersecurity is for everyone, and anyone should be able to participate and learn. So those are the 3 events. Rachel, let me move on to the next slide. And that's everything that we have for you. So if you have any questions for us, or if you want to interact with us, you can certainly reach out to us at care@temple.edu. We are on Twitter at @PU_care. And once again, thank you so much to Tanisha and Black Girls Hack for letting us share some of the work that we've been doing. And we hope you found this interesting and valuable.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
All right. So what does the future career look like for a social engineer? I know that Katora mentioned that you can, write policies, but what else? Are organizations actually like hiring social engineers? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, and that's a great question. This is actually what I asked the professional social engineers, right? Like, how is this being framed? Interestingly, it's not being framed as we need a social engineer. It's usually part of a pen tester, gig. So if you choose to do that, there is usually some social engineering component that you will see there. You can help design training and awareness projects. So we've done a couple of those, both at schools, obviously through competitions, but also at some other NSF events. Developing tabletop exercises and building this into actual CTFs, like other CTFs. That could be both at the education space, academic space, but also for professional training. Interestingly, as an aside, the Collegiate SECTF and the summer pen test, we got actually quite a few inquiries from industry that said, hey, can we compete? And, that they're looking for training, right? So I can see a need for this in that's an actual job, is training and awareness development, right? So there is one. Hakeem, thank you very much. HR, marketing, policy writing, cybersecurity, right? So yeah, absolutely. Psychology, yes, right? So all of these things, and the social sciences in general, I think is great at also helping understand behaviors, profiles, understanding group dynamics. If there's, Rachel, for instance, has looked at this with her projects on ransomwares, right? It's like you have gangs, how is their division of labor happening? So all of these types of things, it may not be advertised as that, but it could be threat intelligence. It could be, criminal justice as well. Great for investigating, right? Hakeem, that's right, representing criminal justice. I love it. So those are just some of the many, many ones. But I have, Hakeem and anyone else in the chat, I have yet to see a specific job title that says social engineer. Usually it's looped into something else.
All right, cool. So I know that you guys teach this at, within your care labs, but do you think that social engineering should be taught as a part of a larger cybersecurity curriculum? And if so, like what departments are going to hold this, or is it just something that's the responsibility of organizations once you start, getting into pen testing or some of the other careers that Hakeem mentioned?
Right. I'm actually going to let Rachel and Katora answer these because they are students, right? Rachel has the undergrad perspective more recently. Katora is further along in the grad program. So I'm going to let them take it, and then I can echo or add on to that.
Yeah, I can start. So like I had mentioned, I took Anshul's class when I was an undergraduate, and we learned about social engineering, and that was really the only class offered at Temple that talks about it. And I really wish there was more, because I mean, along with pretty much everyone else in the class, none of us had really heard of social engineering and didn't know anything about it, which obviously I think more people should. And then in addition to that, I mean, it kind of serves as a good opening for criminal justice students to be interested in cybersecurity. So I think it's really important for it to become, more involved in curriculum. And this can be in criminal justice. I think it should also be in, more cyber computer science related fields. It could also be in, things like psychology. It plays such a big role. So I think it can really be taught in most fields, and it should be.
And just to echo Rachel, I actually think it should be a part of curriculums. Like, I think it's such a big issue that we can't just leave it up to individuals to pick and choose whether they're going to talk about it or not. Like, we literally lose so much data and so much information about yourself through social engineering that we have to bring it more to the forefront. I think that one field that should definitely take this on is psychology. I have a background in psychology and neuroscience, and like my whole interest was in manipulation and motivation. So like, this is right up their alley. Like, this is the one thing that they should definitely be taking on. I also think cyber programs should take it on. And I like to see other fields like economics take it on and see how this works when you're going to target businesses. Criminal justice, as Hakeem mentioned, should definitely take this on. Although I'm a little bit concerned about how they might use it, but it might be worthwhile to invest in and understand how this works. So it should definitely be implemented into curriculums and not left up to individuals.
I'm just going to add on to that, right? I think the slide that Katara was on, where we said we had about over 200 downloads. I need to update that number, but out of those, the majority of download requests that we got were from educators in computer science, which I thought was very, very interesting. And they said, we always talk about it. At least we have one class or 1 week where we dedicate ourselves to talking about social engineering, and we're looking for projects. So I know that there is a need for that. In terms of the applications that we got last year's Collegiate SECTF, there were 6 teams. We only had one that was a pure social science or liberal arts team. I think they were all psych majors. All the other ones were predominantly computer science students, and they said they are hungry for this kind of material and they want to get training in it, and they're not. So I very much think there is a need to do this, Tanisha.
Awesome, thank you. So one last question, because we got a couple more minutes. So you guys said that 70% of organizations were exposed to a social engineering attack, and there was also a very large economic cost to that. What is the best thing that you can summarize that someone can do to help protect against these types of things?
Rachel Couture, or do you want me to go ahead and?
I think just making their employees aware of the threats and how to recognize them is like the main thing. Because so often it can be something obvious that if you know what to look for, you can avoid clicking a certain link if you see, oh, the sender is suspicious, or just links in general.
Yeah, I was going to say, scrutinize your emails. Like, read your emails, scrutinize them. If the sender's, email account doesn't make sense, don't click the link. If the syntax doesn't make sense, don't click the link. Also, like, basic things that we've been talking about for years that people still haven't gotten. Put a complicated password together and don't have the same password for every single thing that you log into. Don't write your password down and stick it on a Post-it note in front of your computer. Like, really basic stuff. Don't leave flash drives and stuff laying around. Just really basic things that are really like the front line defense against being social engineered, that unfortunately, even in the digital age, we still have not mastered.
Yeah, and one more thing I think we need to, because I know organizations are going through employee training. I think the way we train and how often we train needs to change, right? The amount of times that I've seen people do an online quiz, and we get those, right? We get those at Temple too, right? But it's an online quiz, right? So how effective is that? Do we know how effective that is? Is it working? What is the sort of retention rate, right, of the information that we're learning? What are the consequences of not getting a good score, right? So all of these things I think need to really be looked at a little bit more, and I think that's part of the answer as well.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, ladies. Professor Reggae, Rachel, Katora, we appreciate you for coming out and talking to us about social engineering. You can see these are their, this is their information. And we also have on the very first slide their contact information on Twitter. So please feel free to reach out and interact with them. They're always absolutely amazing on social media. And we do these Bring a Hacker to Work days every Sunday. So we will see you again next Sunday, where we will be talking about mainframe engineering. All right. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you for coming out, and everyone have a nice day.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.